don't know what would the alternative would be to say, oh no, I can't do that and make excuses and then just carry on. And if I did that, I would just feel like such a coward. And like I say, I would regret it for the rest of my life.
Hello, and welcome to another new episode of Live Through That. I'm your host, Mike Hipple, and on this podcast, we'll dig a little deeper into the pivotal moments that shaped the lives of some of my favorite artists from the 80s and 90s. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Lesley Woods, frontwoman of the influential post-punk band The Au Pairs. Known for their sharp political edge, fearless lyrics, and groundbreaking role in the late 70s and early 80s UK punk scene, Lesley helped shape the sound and a message that still resonates today. Lesley's pivotal moment is something that has happened quite recently, putting together a new Au Pairs band and going out on tour.
Right, well, I started making forays back into music maybe 10, 15 years ago. And then in the last few years, maybe 5, I was asked, what I basically did, I started creating these backing tracks on a digital audio workstation with a view to going out doing solo performances. And I made backing tracks of new material, and also I made backing tracks of the songs I wrote when I was in the original Au Pairs. Um, and Somebody put down bass lines, somebody helped me with the rhythm tracks, I put down guitar lines, and those were mixed down. And then I started putting I started like trying to get gigs, which is really hard because I've been away from music for a long, long time. And so I started kind of contacting people and and then eventually I got offered some support slots for some quite well-known artists like the Chameleons. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're a very well-known English band from the sort of punk era, goth. Their fans, a lot of them are goths. But anyway, I got invited by the promoter who was promoting their tour to do 11 dates with them. So I did that. Then I got offered another support by another promoter to support Jerry Harrison, who used to be in Talking Heads, and another support for Gavin Friday, who used to be in the Virgin Prunes. Anyway, so I started doing solo gigs, and then at the early part of last year, one of the promoters involved, who had given me these solo gigs, asked me if I would reform the Au Pairs. And I was like, oh. And in fact, in a way, that had I released an EP, a solo EP. And I remember thinking when I'd done that, released it as Lesley Woods Au Pairs. And I went out and did these gigs as Lesley Woods Au Pairs. I remember thinking, oh, it would be really good to reform the Au Pairs, and knowing that the ex-members probably wouldn't want to do it for various reasons. I thought I would be great to do it with new people, but I didn't really have any contacts with musicians. So, and anyway, it was just something that went through my head. And then at the early part of last year, one of the promoters asked me if I would reform the Au Pairs, and he said he offered me a tour. And I said, but I don't think the ex-members will do it. And he said, well, do it with new members. And I said, what? Are you sure? And he said, yeah, do it with new members. And then he basically was hyping me up, like, you were the Au Pairs, you're the face of the Au Pairs, blah, blah, blah. And so So then I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I just thought this is like an opportunity that I can't afford to miss because, I mean, although there are a lot of artists who are very mature going out there doing their thing now, I just thought I haven't, I just feel like I haven't got time to really, play the field, so as to speak. So it was like, if I don't do this now, I never will, sort of thing. You know what I mean? Well, anyway, then I had to get set about finding people to play in the au pairs, and I asked a friend if he knew of any bass players, female bass players, and he suggested two, one of whom had just had a baby, and the other one was Estella from Big Joni, who I've seen and who I love Big Joni. They're a great band, and I really admired her bass playing. So I got in touch with her, and I asked her if she would be willing to, come and play bass in the au pairs on this tour, and she said she would. Which I was really surprised about. I thought that she might not want to do it, and also I thought she might be busy with Big Joni. But in fact, she was available. Big Joni weren't touring at the time this tour was scheduled to take place. So, and then I got in touch with Thurston Moore, and I said, I need a drummer and a guitarist. Do you know anyone? And he suggested Alex Ward, who's also worked with Pere Ubu, and he suggested Jem Dalton. And I got in touch with them, and they also said yes. So I was like, wow, this is great. So then we got together. We had a kind of tryout of three au pairs tracks, and it just gelled. And yeah, and we've been playing. We've done 6 UK dates so far, and they've gone really well. We've been supporting the Skids, and we've been getting really good feedback. And we just came back from the Netherlands. We did 5 dates. Well, we did 4 dates in the Netherlands and 1 date in Cologne, and it was just amazing. I mean, it was just like, I think the Eindhoven gig sold out, and the feedback and the response was just 100% positive, and that was like people knowing and being fully aware that it wasn't the original members. I've been completely honest about the fact that it's not the original members. I've got no reason to not be. I'm very proud of the fact that the people who've agreed to play with me are playing with me. They're very well respected, well known musicians, and I'm just very proud and honoured to be playing with them. And I was just really surprised and very pleasantly surprised at the response, because given the way things have been going on social media, I was worried that, the fact that maybe because it wasn't the original members, it would be a total disaster. But in fact, it hasn't been. It's been a total success. And I think people have to accept that, as hard as it might be. Now we're hoping to go into the studio and record an album, and like putting out feelers for an album deal. We're going to be going into a studio for 3 days in June, and we hope to lay down 3 new tracks. And if we haven't got an album deal by June, we will use those 3 tracks as leverage to try and get a deal. But yeah, that's what I want to do. Like I said, I haven't got all the time in the world left. I'm quite old now. I'm quite mature. I know I don't look it. I've had a lot of work done. No, I'm joking. But yeah, I mean, at my age and my stage of life, it's just like it's very important to me that I do this now, because I haven't got years and years stretching ahead of me. and I really want to do that. That's what I really want to do. So I'm hoping that it all comes to pass, and that that we do an album, and that we do continue to tour. Hopefully, we'll get over to Europe and maybe the US, although I'm not sure if Trump will let me in, and also the obstacles that that bands face coming over to play, the expense and everything. So we'll see. But yeah, definitely tour other parts of the world, Europe, maybe Australia, Japan. It would be great. Yeah.
So, how does it differ touring now as opposed to the early 80s when you were in the original incarnation of the band?
Ah, that's a good question. Well, obviously, back in those days, it was very rough and primitive. I mean, going up the motorway in the back of an old transit van, sitting on some old raggedy cushions, and being quite out to lunch, which made it all the more bearable. But no, this time it's very well organized, and I have a nice tour bus, a brand new tour bus, which we've hired, and got a very good deal on that. It's much more well organized. Like I say, we've got backing, so I'm not saying that we're getting paid millions of pounds or big bucks, but we can afford to hire a nice van, and to take a splitter van to take our equipment and for us to sit in. And I've got a friend who's an old Au Pairs fan, who is kind of acting as a quasi tour manager. He's like helping me, and he's doing the driving, and his son is doing the merch, and he's a great guy. He's like got a master's in marketing, so he's helping on social media, and he also helps with the driving. So I've got a great team. It's a very happy bunch. The four band members, and Nick, who's doing helping me tour manage, and Max, who's doing the merch. So I've got a great team, and we're very happy, and we have a great time when we are touring. And also, we are staying in cheap but decent hotels, which is a lot different from back in the whenever it was 1980s. We stayed in some right dumps in those days. I mean, I even remember in one place sharing a room with bunk beds with the roadies and everything, and a lot of farting and snoring. So none of that. We all get our own hotel room, and yeah, and that makes for a happy, healthy. People are much more healthy now, aren't they? So we're much more healthy, and we're much. I don't know. We're just much more clear-headed and healthy and happy.
Lesley had attempted to launch a regroup of the band back in 1995, but that didn't quite take off. Why is the timing right now for her to reform the band?
I mean, I always wanted to get back into music. I never really abandoned music. I've always written songs and played guitar and piddled about. And then I don't know, it was a long time ago. I can't remember exactly how it came about, but I ended up trying to reform. I asked the ex members if they were interested in reuniting, and then and that basically I got a negative response. I think, yeah, and the response I got was, one of the responses was, "You haven't sang for a long time," which like made me quite cross. And it was like, all right, I'm going to show you now. I can still sing. Anyway, they didn't want to reunite at that time, so I went ahead and got a bunch of women to do it with. But I don't know if social media existed in 1995. I've got a feeling it didn't. So there was no way of like publicizing what I was doing. And I didn't really have any contacts because the au pairs came from Birmingham, and most of the well, I didn't have any contacts, and I was in London, and I didn't have any contacts in London. I didn't have any in Birmingham either. I didn't have any anywhere. But so I got this bunch of women together, and I guess we must have learnt the set. Um, I managed to get a few gigs, two of which I can remember. One was at the Astoria in London, and one was, I think it was at the Melkweg in Amsterdam. But then we just fizzled out because, as I say, we didn't have any backing, and that was all a bit disorganized as well. But I can't even remember the names of the women that I did it with. I've lost touch with them, and actually don't know what happened to the equipment we used. Yeah, and I can't really remember it very well. I do. I know that the gigs, when I look at, when I try to find a list of the gigs that au pairs played, it's on the record, which I'm quite surprised about. So it's on the objective record that the au pairs went and played at the Astoria in London, I think in sometime in 1995. And in fact, I've actually recently, people have come up to me and said, "Oh, I was at that gig," which is quite surprising, you know. So yeah, it's unfortunate I just didn't have the backing then. But this time, yeah, like I mean, yeah, the promoter offered me a tour and a decent overall fee for doing the tour, and offered me the chance to do it with new members. And I think I would have been absolutely stupid to have turned that down. And maybe it is a shame that I didn't get that offer in 1995, but better late than never.
Lesley released a solo record at the beginning of 2025 called In the Fade. What was the inspiration for doing that record?
Well, when I started get back into music, I had to sort of build up my confidence again, and it wasn't particularly high. So I had to really start from scratch, and I wanted to see really if I was able to do it. But I was also learning how to use a digital audio workstation, and I did a few courses like music production for women, and I got really locked in to this kind of very self-absorbed, like sitting upstairs with my personal studio, if you like, where I've got boxes and my computer, and I got very locked in. I had over the course of a few years, I bought equipment, so I had a microphone and boxes, and I got very locked in and started creating some music, and I just thought, oh, I just put out an EP on Bandcamp. I didn't really have any high expectations of it being a massive success or anything, but I just felt like I wanted to do it. So I just put down 4 tracks and then just released it on Bandcamp. But I didn't really do much to promote it. In fact, I didn't do anything really. I think the fact that I've been offered this tour and I've reformed the band, that to me seems like this is what I want and this is what I want to do. I want to do an album with a band. I don't want to do a solo album. Do you see what I mean? So I think in a way, whatever it was I wanted to accomplish by doing that EP, I've accomplished it because I've put myself out there by doing these support gigs, and I've put myself out there doing this EP, and I have come to the attention of promoters, And that has led to them, offering me the opportunity to reform the au pairs and to go out and do a tour. So I think, in a way, I've accomplished and achieved whatever it was I wanted to achieve through doing that EP. And in fact, the tracks that I did on my own on the EP are going to be on the album. Well, two at least will be on the album. We're doing, well, we've slightly modified the two tracks because it's great to hear what they sound like with musicians and drums and a guitarist and a bass player, a really good musicians playing them. And so they have been slightly modified, but the two tracks on the EP that we do, and they do sound quite a lot different, are Cross the Bridge, and the other one is Let It Go.
Do you think that the act of creating In the Fade made you also consciously maybe realize that you wanted and craved more collaboration with your art?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's very lonely creating on your own. And also, I mean, if I was a musician that could play 10 different instruments, or even three, or even two, perhaps. I mean, I can play a little bit of keyboards, but it just makes you think. A lot of the time, makes you feel that the songs are not reaching their full potential, the potential that they could reach if you had. And I mean, I feel like that even with musicians. I feel like, oh God, it would be great to have a cello or a horn section on this bit, or strings, or like three backing vocalists doing harmonies. I mean, even with the four-piece band, there are, you can only accomplish so much with two guitars, a bass, and drums. You always are kind of thinking, I wonder what it would sound like, you know, with the horn section, or with a piano, or. But mind you, like Alex, who is in the au pairs, he's an extremely talented musician, and he plays the piano. He teaches piano. He's a great guitarist. He also plays the clarinet and saxophone. So he's very hoping to put him to work on the new album.
When you were selecting members for the reformed Au Pairs band, was it important to have gender symmetry to what the original Au Pairs were?
Yeah, I think that that was still something. Yeah, I definitely wanted to follow the model that was the original au pairs of two men, two women. Well, I definitely wanted more than one woman. Yeah, I'm not too bothered about it being all women. And I mean, the guys that Jem and Alex are just really nice guys. There's no hidden agenda. There's no ego issues. Well, so far. So, and also they were, what I also like about it, which is quite different from the 1980s or the punk era, is that they all play in different bands as well. They don't just play in the au pairs. And I think there's a lot more fluidity now with musicians or with bands. I mean, then, I mean, it's like if you were in a band in the 80s, the early 80s, and you split up, that was the end. You know, it wouldn't have been within your contemplation. Okay, you don't want to do it anymore. I'll go and find someone else to do it with. It was really more like when the band split up, that was the end.
Have any of the original Au Pairs band members come to see any of the new shows?
Right. Well, it's funny you should ask that. Um, I don't think they have seen any of the new shows. Things are very, very acrimonious. So, um, I mean, if they wanted to come and see them, we've said that we'd definitely put them on the guest list. But to date, I don't think they've actually come to any of the live shows. But on the Au Pair's official Facebook page, there are live reels of some of the perform of some of the gigs from some of the gigs we've done so far. So and I have reason to believe that they do look at that page, and well, in fact, I know they do. So I expect they have seen those reels, yeah, but they haven't actually come to any of the gigs, or if they have, they've come anonymously. Yeah, it's very, very upsetting. Yeah, of course, yeah, and especially I found some of the things that have been said and the degree of the nastiness and the malice and the spitefulness has been really tough. And I'm left feeling that what they would like is for me to see me being burnt at the stake. Like they hate, and that is upsetting. And I get that they're hurt and upset, or they're afraid that they might be forgotten or something like that. But I, at the end of the day, I can't help feeling that it is a kind of dog in the manger thing. Like they don't want to do it, but they don't want me to do it either. And I think that, at the end of the day, you cannot justifiably maintain that position because I want to do it. I've been given an opportunity to do it, and I'm going to do it. And that's that. So if they want to do it as well, then they can. I'm not stopping them, but yeah, that's up to them. And I'm quite happy to have a conversation with them about that and come to a compromise, like a lot of bands have done. Like the Beat, for example, they had an internal dispute and split up. And then one section of the original band wanted to do it, and another section of the band also simultaneously wanted to do it. And they reached an agreement, an amicable agreement, a compromise. And one lot went out as the English Beat, and the other lot went out as something else. It was quite confusing to the public. But nevertheless, they reached an amicable agreement about it. But I don't think that's the case here. I don't think it's a case that they want to do it. I think it's a case that they don't want to do it, and they don't want me to do it either. And as I say, that's an unsustainable position. But does it upset me? Yeah, it upsets me because I think the au pairs is a concept that can be carried on. As I say, I want to do another album. I will be writing the material. I wrote the material that in the original au pairs, um, and it will be Lesley style material. And maybe after I've gone, maybe somebody else will carry on the concept. I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid of someone carrying on the concept of what the au pairs stood for and what they were about. I think that's a great idea that something can continue. But that's the way I see it, and I don't think they share my vision, which is a shame. But yeah, it is upsetting, some of the nastiness, and actually for it to get have gotten to this stage is, yeah, it's like it's crazy because the au pairs are not the Rolling Stones. I mean, we're a band that attracts even at our height. We were a band that attracted 400 to 1,000 people. Do you know what I mean? So I think things are like getting very much out of perspective and out of proportion. There's no one's got massive money, and I think you have to keep things in perspective. And I think there's a real danger. Uh, well, I think at the moment certain people are losing their perspective and their sense of proportion. It's the au pairs are not. Like I say, we're just a band that just attracts maybe 400 to 1,000 people, and that's it. And I think that some people would do well to remember that. And like I say, they can go and do it if they want to. I'm not stopping them.
Huge thanks to Lesley for sharing her story. The Au Pairs are currently on tour in the UK and Europe, and maybe, possibly, if we're lucky, we'll get to see them in the US later in the year. You can keep up to date on their website, which I will post in the show notes. And I'll end with a quick reminder that you can buy my book on 80s musicians and where they are today, 80s Redux, and its sequel, Live Through That, on 90s artists wherever you buy your books. And if you like this show, please leave a review where you're listening. It always helps others find us. And of course, subscribe so that you won't miss an episode. Thanks for listening.